The sky above Novaterra was a constant burn of red and orange, like the planet itself was wounded and bleeding. The cities lay in ruins, jagged skyscrapers broken like shattered glass, streets cracked and empty, and dust swirled endlessly in the wind. Rylan Voss moved silently through the rubble, his boots crunching against ash and stone. His armor was scratched, scorched, but it held. His rifle hung at his side, heavy, familiar, a comfort in a world that had forgotten safety. Rylan had fought the Tirwen for years, alien invaders with jagged carapaces, glowing eyes, and weapons that could vaporize entire blocks. Most humans had either died or fled to underground settlements. Yet he kept moving, searching for scraps, for supplies, for anything that could keep a survivor alive another day. The memories of comrades lost, friends turned to dust, haunted him. They were shadows he carried with him, heavier than his armor, colder than the ash around him. A faint sound stopped him. Not the wind, not the distant rumble of alien patrols, but a small, pitiful whimper. He froze, scanning the ruins. His instinct screamed to stay hidden, to ignore it. Tirwen patrols were close, their sensors roaming the city. But something in that sound pricked at him, a hint of life struggling against impossible odds. He moved cautiously toward the noise, ducking behind crumbled walls and twisted beams. The whimper came again, sharper this time. Rylan pushed a fallen concrete slab aside and froze. There, in the debris, was a tiny creature barely larger than a cat, with cracked scales that flickered in dull shades of gray. Its eyes, wide and desperate, locked onto his. A low growl rumbled from nearby. Rylan's pulse quickened. The mother dragon, thin and scarred, emerged from the shadows, her wings dragging across broken glass. Hunger had made her wary, fierce, and untrusting. She bared teeth like knives, and the air seemed to shimmer with the heat of her suppressed fire. She could have killed him in a heartbeat, yet she hesitated, watching him as carefully as he watched her. Rylan lowered his rifle slowly. He had faced Tirwen warriors who could crush a human in seconds, yet this was different. This was instinct, raw and unshaped by logic. He reached into his pack and pulled out a ration bar, the last one he had. He tore it in half and tossed it toward the dragon child. It stumbled forward, sniffed, and devoured it in one gulp. The mother hissed, a sound of warning and suspicion. Rylan froze, understanding her perfectly. In her eyes he was both predator and potential ally. In that instant he made a decision. Humans survived by courage, by choice, not by hiding. He would protect this child even if it meant risking everything. A sudden shadow passed across the sky. Rylan's head snapped upward. One of the Tirwen scout drones hovered over the ruins, its sensors sweeping the ground. If it spotted him, the patrols would descend within minutes. He had no time for hesitation. He grabbed the dragon child and ducked behind the rubble, heart hammering. The mother followed, tense and ready to strike at anything that moved wrong. Rylan's mind raced. There was no safe place here. Every structure could collapse, every corner could hide alien death. He scanned the surroundings, looking for a path to safety, some hidden shelter where the Tirwen sensors couldn't see. His eyes landed on a partially collapsed tunnel, a maintenance conduit leading below the city. It was dark, unstable, possibly deadly, but it was their only chance. He whispered to the dragon child, though it could not understand words, only tone. "We're moving. Stay close. Don't make a sound." The child trembled but followed, instinctively trusting him more than the shadows around them. The mother dragon pressed close, wings tucked, muscles coiled for flight or fight. The tunnel entrance was narrow, jagged metal and debris blocking parts of it. Rylan worked quickly, shifting twisted girders, prying loose panels, making enough room to crawl through. Behind him, the drone hovered, scanning. Its sensors pulsed a faint blue, precise, unyielding. He felt the heat of its gaze through his armor. One wrong move, one sound too loud, and it would signal the patrol. As he edged into the darkness, the walls creaking ominously, he glanced back at the red sky, at the ruined city that had been home. He thought of the countless humans who had fallen, the friends who would never see another sunrise, the lives that had ended before their stories finished. And he felt a spark, a stubborn, unshakable certainty, that humans survived because someone refused to give up, refused to leave life behind. The dragon child squeaked softly, and Rylan felt a pang of responsibility sharper than any fear. He had chosen this path. Protecting it meant defying the Tirwen, risking death, and challenging a world that had no room for mercy. He swallowed the fear, clenched his teeth, and moved deeper into the tunnel. A sudden vibration shook the ground beneath them. Small rocks rattled, dust fell like rain. Something was coming. Something large, something moving toward them through the city ruins. Ryland's pulse jumped. He couldn't see it yet, but he knew instinctively it wasn't human. He tightened his grip on the dragon child, and the mother pressed close, all three of them tense, alert, waiting for the next move. In the shadows of the broken world, survival demanded courage. And for Ryland the choice was clear: fight, protect, and defy impossible odds, or watch life vanish before his eyes. Somewhere ahead, in the deep darkness of the tunnel, a new danger waited, and it would test every ounce of human will, every flicker of bravery, and every shred of ingenuity he had left. Ryland crawled deeper into the tunnel, the dragon child clutched against his chest, its tiny claws digging lightly into his armor. The mother pressed close behind, muscles coiled, wings folded, eyes scanning every shadow. The dim glow from Ryland's suit illuminated the rough walls just enough to show twisted pipes and broken conduits. Every step could collapse the floor or alert the DracoWar patrol above. Every sound could betray them. He reached a fork in the tunnel. One path led downward, deeper into unknown darkness. The other angled slightly upward, ending in a vented hatch that might open onto the ruined streets again. The hatch was tempting, it could be faster, but he remembered the drone overhead. Any exposure there would be fatal. He chose the deeper path. Safety required patience, not speed. As they moved, Ryland thought about his options. Supplies were near zero. The dragon child's energy was fading, scales dimming, tail twitching weakly. The mother was limping, her side streaked with blood from some earlier injury, probably from an attack or starvation. He had nothing to treat her wounds. Nothing to feed them beyond the tiny scraps he carried. Every ration he gave away now was a gamble. Ryland set down the dragon child gently. He tore pieces of his energy ration, pressing them into its small mouth. The creature whimpered, but the color returned slightly to its eyes. He glanced at the mother, who hissed sharply at the movement. Hunger sharpened her instincts, made every human gesture a potential threat. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. He had to prove he meant no harm, had to show he would protect, not attack. The mother shifted slightly but did not strike. Small victories counted in survival. A sudden tremor ran through the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryland froze, heart pounding. The vibration wasn't from above, it was coming from deeper in the tunnel. Something large was moving, something alive, something that didn't belong here. The dragon child squeaked and curled tighter against him. The mother growled low in her throat, tail lashing. Ryland had no weapon against whatever this was. His rifle, though powerful, could not reach something unseen and massive. There was no turning back. They had already committed to the tunnel. Survival meant ingenuity, not brute force. He scanned the walls, the pipes, the broken conduits. One idea came, desperate but viable. He could collapse part of the tunnel behind them, creating a barrier, forcing whatever followed to stop or retreat. But the debris might also trap them. He made the choice in a heartbeat. Courage demanded action even when risk was unbearable. With a precision born from years of battlefield experience, Ryland jammed a loose panel against a weakened support strut and triggered a small charge he carried for demolition. The wall shuddered, cracked, and a shower of rubble tumbled down behind them. The vibration was deafening. Dust filled the air, blinding and choking. The sound of movement beyond the rubble came, something large struggling, unable to continue past the collapsed section. Ryland exhaled, heart hammering, and pressed on. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to crawl single file. The dragon child whimpered softly, and Ryland whispered words he didn't know it could understand. "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." The promise felt hollow against the unknown ahead, but he meant it. Humanity wasn't just survival, it was courage when the odds were impossible. Hours seemed to pass. Darkness pressed against them, silence broken only by their shallow breathing and the occasional drip of water from overhead pipes. Ryland's mind ran constantly, calculating risks, anticipating threats. Food, shelter, heat, DracoWar patrols, structural collapse. All were deadly variables. Every moment required attention, ingenuity, and willpower. Finally, they emerged into a wider chamber, partially collapsed, with faint streams of light filtering through cracks in the ruined ceiling above. Ryland assessed the space quickly. Enough room to rest briefly, enough cover to avoid aerial sensors. The dragon child lay trembling, exhausted. The mother curled protectively around it, tail coiled, wings ready to strike. Ryland sat down, resting his back against a stable pillar. He reached into his pack and found a small emergency ration pack, nearly gone. It wasn't enough for all three, but he divided it carefully. The dragon child ate first, then the mother. Ryland held back his own hunger. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion, They were all constant threats, but survival wasn't about comfort. It was about sacrifice, about choosing to act when no one else could. As he sat there, listening to the faint echo of movement from the city above, Rylan realized the gravity of what he had done. Feeding the dragons, protecting them, leading them into tunnels filled with unknown dangers, it was not simply survival. It was rebellion against fear itself, a statement that humans could stand as guardians, not just prey. Then the air shifted. A faint hum, almost imperceptible, vibrated through the chamber. It wasn't wind. It wasn't natural. Sensors, or something alien, were near. The teacher when patrols above had discovered something unusual. Rylan's instinct screamed that time was short. He had led them into temporary safety, but the hunt was far from over. He looked at the dragon child, its eyes still soft and trusting despite exhaustion, then at the mother, tense but watching him. He clenched his fists. Humanity had never thrived by hiding. It survived through courage, through intelligence, through acts of moral defiance when the universe demanded surrender. And Rylan Voss had chosen not to surrender. A shadow moved at the entrance to the chamber. Something was coming. Rylan raised his head, heart hammering, ready to face whatever waited beyond. One choice could mean life, or death. And in the broken world of Nova Terra, courage was the only way forward. Rylan's eyes adjusted to the dim light of the chamber as the vibration at the entrance grew louder. The shadow moved closer, and his heart thudded against his chest. Whatever it was, it wasn't human. The faint metallic hum gave it away. Teacher Wen technology. Their patrols had found him. And now they were coming. He crawled closer to the dragon child, checking its breathing. Weak but alive. The mother dragon shifted beside him, wings tense, tail flicking in agitation. They trusted him now in their own way, and he couldn't fail them. Failure meant death, not just his own but theirs too. Rylan scanned the chamber, eyes sharp. The walls were lined with broken conduits, twisted pipes, and scattered debris. Most humans would panic here, seeing only danger, but Rylan's mind worked differently. He was trained to turn despair into opportunity, to convert weakness into leverage. He spotted a broken energy drone, its hull cracked, sensors dark but intact. An idea sparked. The drone could be used as a decoy. He could modify its power cells to emit life signatures that mimicked a human patrol, drawing the teacher Wen away from the chamber. It was risky. If he failed, the aliens would detect all of them instantly, but staying put was suicide. Courage demanded ingenuity. He set the dragon child down gently, letting it curl against a pile of rubble. The mother hissed, tense but silent. Rylan opened the drone's hull, tools from his belt working quickly. Sparks flew, metal scraped, circuits hummed to life under his careful touch. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with the grime and ash on his armor. Every second counted. Every misstep could mean death. Outside the chamber, he heard movement. The teacher Wen patrols were close, scanning systematically. Rylan triggered the drone. Blue light pulsed from its sensors, mimicking human heat signatures and motion. He sent it crawling toward the far side of the tunnels, dragging a string of weak energy pulses to make it appear as a moving squad. The hum of alien detection units grew louder, then shifted. The patrols were moving toward the decoy. Rylan exhaled but didn't relax. One failure could still mean disaster. He picked up the dragon child and pressed forward, deeper into the chamber. The mother followed, wings tucked, muscles tense. He guided them through a series of narrow conduits and side tunnels, places the alien sensors couldn't reach. Every turn, every crawl demanded focus, strategy, and nerves of steel. Hours passed, or it felt that way. The air was stale, dust choking, and the narrow passages scraped against armor and scales. Rylan rationed the last of the energy packs, giving tiny portions to the dragon child and mother. Hunger gnawed at all three of them, but survival meant pacing, not indulgence. Every act of restraint was a lesson in discipline, a testament to human foresight. Then a sudden crash echoed from above. Debris fell from the ceiling, dust filling the tunnels. The Tier had detected something, perhaps the decoy moving too predictably. Rylan's pulse accelerated. They were close. He had only one choice left: create a safe haven inside this chamber, somewhere the alien sensors could not penetrate. He spotted an old maintenance alcove, partially sealed by a collapsed wall. Its small entrance would keep the aliens from detecting them, and it had a faint energy signature shield from long-abandoned conduits. Rylan pulled debris aside, patched weak supports with metal and scavenged circuits, and fashioned a rudimentary force field from old energy plates. It hummed faintly, but it was enough to hide life signatures temporarily. The dragon mother watched silently, eyes gleaming with cautious trust. She followed him into the alcove. Rylan placed the dragon child in the center, letting it rest. He adjusted the shielding, making sure every angle was covered. Sweat ran down his face. The effort drained him, but the reward was undeniable. A small pocket of safety in a city ruled by death. Outside, he could hear the faint scrape of Tyronin boots and the metallic whine of their scanners. The aliens were close, relentless, but they had been tricked. Rylan smiled grimly. Humans were clever when cornered, and courage often came wrapped in calculated risks. Every innovation, every improvised device, every careful observation of the enemy had bought them survival. But he knew this was only temporary. The Tyronin would not give up easily. They would adapt. They would hunt them again, smarter, faster, deadlier. Rylan's mind raced ahead, planning contingencies, escape routes, and traps. Every detail mattered, every choice could mean life or death. Humans survived by thinking faster, acting smarter, and refusing to bow to despair. The dragon child stirred, blinking at him, and Rylan felt a surge of determination. He had kept them alive this far, but the true challenge was still ahead. The tunnels would only protect them for so long. At some point they would have to confront the world above, the ruins, the Tyronin patrols, the endless danger. And when that moment came, human ingenuity and courage would be tested to the absolute limit. Rylan crouched beside the dragon child, brushing soot from its cracked scales. He whispered softly, though it could not understand words, "We're not done yet. Not by far. But we will survive. We will fight. And we will win." From the shadows of the alcove, the mother dragon hissed softly, a warning and a question, and Rylan met her gaze. He understood perfectly. The fight was far from over, and survival meant more than hiding. It meant planning, adapting, and acting boldly when every option seemed impossible. A faint vibration shook the floor beneath them. Rylan froze. This time it wasn't from the decoy, the tunnel, or the Tyronin outside. Something massive, something unknown, was moving below the chamber. He clenched his fists. Courage demanded choices in impossible situations, and the next one would define life or death, not just for him but for those who now depended entirely on his human will. The alcove fell silent again, but tension thickened. Whatever waited below, it was coming. And Rylan knew that ingenuity alone might not be enough. Human courage would have to rise above fear, above exhaustion, and above the impossible. The vibration grew stronger, rattling dust from the alcove ceiling. Rylan's heart pounded as he crouched beside the dragon child, gripping its fragile body with one hand while checking the stability of the makeshift shield with the other. The mother dragon hissed, wings flexing, tail coiling around him like a living warning. The sound wasn't just the Tyronin, it was something larger, something moving deliberately toward them. He peeked through a crack in the wall. Massive shadows stretched across the tunnel floor. The Tyronin patrols had found the chamber. Their insectoid bodies clicked and shimmered with armored plating. Their energy weapons glowed, ready to annihilate anything alive. But behind them, a larger presence, mechanical and alive, was advancing. A Tyronin assault crawler, taller than a building, designed to crush resistance and obliterate everything in its path. Rylan clenched his jaw. Flight was impossible. The tunnel offered no escape. Their only option was to fight smart, or die. Humans survived where others failed by turning impossible odds into opportunity. He had to act quickly. He studied the crawler's movement. It shifted slowly, heavily, its energy sensors scanning. He noticed a weakness. The joints near its legs emitted a faint pulse when it moved. If he could collapse part of the tunnel onto that section, he might immobilize it, at least temporarily. But the rubble would also crush anything in the chamber if miscalculated. One wrong move and all three of them would be buried alive. Rylan's mind raced. Fear gnawed, but determination burned brighter. Survival demanded ingenuity paired with courage. He grabbed a weakened support beam and, using his armor's magnetic thrusters, positioned it just so. Sparks flew as he rigged a small charge from his demolition kit, connecting it to the beam. Precision was everything. If it detonated too early, the dragon child would be dead. Too late, and the crawler would reach them. He whispered to the dragons, though the mother didn't understand words. "Trust me. This will work." The dragon child's eyes reflected the dim light of his helmet, small, vulnerable, utterly dependent on him. He triggered the charge. A deafening crash shook the tunnel. Dust and debris rained down. The beam fell with perfect timing, collapsing a section of rock and twisted metal onto the crawler's legs. It groaned, sparks flying from exposed circuits, sensors shorting. The massive machine teetered, immobilized but far from destroyed. Rylan knew the Tigerwenin weren't done. The chamber shook as alien energy beams cut through the walls around them. He fired his rifle, not to kill, but to create controlled explosions by hitting unstable conduit panels. Metal arcs flared, blinding sensors temporarily. Smoke and sparks filled the chamber. The Tigerwenin retreated slightly, confused, giving him precious seconds. Seconds he could use to lead the dragons to a safer corner deeper in the alcove. But the assault crawler began to rise again, its massive limbs jerking with destructive intent. Rylan's armor was failing under the heat and debris. He could feel the suit's hydraulics stuttering. It was now or never. His hand shot to a secondary power core in his pack, a makeshift plasma pulse generator jury-rigged from scavenged tech. He aimed at the crawler's exposed joints. Every calculation, every second, every movement relied on human precision. He triggered the pulse. Energy arcs snaked through the crawler's circuits. Sparks exploded. Smoke and fire surged from its limbs. It fell to the ground, twitching but disabled. Rylan sank to one knee, exhausted, chest heaving. The dragon child pressed against him, still alive, trembling but safe. The mother curled protectively around them, wings flexing in relief. They had survived. Against impossible odds, human ingenuity, courage, and determination had turned near-certain death into survival. Outside, he could hear the faint retreat of Tigerwenin patrols. They would regroup, but for now the city was theirs. Rylan allowed himself a moment to breathe, to feel the weight of what they had done. Humans survived not because the universe was kind, but because they chose courage when fear was easier. They adapted, they improvised, and they protected life, even when it wasn't their own. Rylan looked at the dragon mother, and for the first time, he saw acknowledgement in her eyes. Not just trust but respect. She had fought countless threats, yet here was a human who had defied death and alien technology to save them. That respect wasn't given lightly. It was earned. He thought about the child curled in his arms. If humans could inspire courage in dragons, perhaps hope could spread further. Perhaps survivors would see that humanity wasn't merely clinging to existence. They could lead, protect, and reclaim what had been lost. Rylan's pulse steadied. There was still danger ahead. Tigerwenin would not forget this. But survival had a rhythm, a pattern, a spark. And that spark, that human spark, could not be extinguished. Courage, intelligence, and selfless action had carried them through the storm. A rumble shook the tunnel again, not from the Tigerwenin but from deeper beneath the city. Something massive stirred. Rylan tightened his grip on the dragon child, scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. He realized that the battle for survival was only just beginning. Humans had survived impossible odds today, but the choices tomorrow would demand even more. He whispered to the dragons, voice steady despite exhaustion, "We fight. We survive. Together." The mother dragon's wings brushed against him, a silent agreement. In that dark, crumbling chamber, a veteran human had turned fear into action, hopelessness into strategy, and desperation into victory. Against all odds, ingenuity and courage had created a haven, even if temporary, and forged a bond between species that might change the course of a broken world. Above them, the red sky of Nova Terra burned, but inside the tunnels, a small spark of hope glimmered. Humanity, against all odds, had survived, and for the dragons in their care, it might mean a chance at life. The tunnels were quiet now, the Tigerwenin patrols retreating above, smoke and debris settling into the cracks of Nova Terra's broken streets. Rylan sat against a pillar, chest heaving, grime and blood streaking his armor. The dragon child curled in his lap, tiny claws pressing lightly against his chest. The mother lay coiled around them, wings folded, tail brushing protectively along the ground. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. He looked up through a fissure in the ceiling where light filtered in, red and gold, like the world itself was watching. The city was still in ruins, still dangerous, but they had survived. Against overwhelming odds, human courage and ingenuity had carved a space for life to endure. And survival, Rylan knew, was only the beginning. The dragon child stirred, blinking up at him with eyes that had grown brighter since the first meal. Its small, hesitant movements carried trust. The mother lifted her head, scanning the tunnels, but she did not move. Her presence was calm now, protective, almost solemn. Rylan felt a surge of something he hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. Humans had survived the Tigerwenin not because of luck, not because of weapons alone, but because they refused to surrender when the world demanded it. He had risked everything for two creatures that weren't his own species, for a bond that many would have called foolish. And yet, the act had created more than survival. It had created trust, respect, and a spark of something stronger: inspiration. Rylan thought about the survivors scattered across Nova Terra, living in fear and hiding from the alien patrols. If word of his actions spread, it could change how humans saw themselves. Courage wasn't just about fighting, it was about making choices when every path was dangerous, when every outcome was uncertain. Protecting the defenseless, improvising against impossible technology, and defying fear, that was what made humans exceptional. He leaned back against the rubble, brushing soot from the dragon child's cracked scales. He had fed it, protected it, and guided it through death itself. That small act, seemingly insignificant in the grand scale of war, might ripple outward, teaching something vital: that life, no matter how small or strange, was worth defending. The mother dragon lifted her wings slightly and emitted a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr. Rylan interpreted it as approval. Not just gratitude but acknowledgement. She had seen countless threats, yet here was a human who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. The bond between them was fragile but real, forged in danger and solidified by action. Hours passed. The city above remained tense, shadows shifting as the Tyrannan regrouped, but the alcove remained hidden. Rylan scavenged what remained of his pack, securing energy cells, water, and scraps. He made notes in his mind, planning their next moves. Survival was no longer reactive, it was strategic. Humans survived by thinking ahead, adapting, and daring to act when others froze. He imagined the larger picture. Survivor enclaves across Nova Terra could learn from this. Courage was contagious. Intelligence applied under pressure was a weapon. Morality, even when it demanded risk, was not weakness, it was strength. Protecting life, in a world that demanded destruction, was a testament to what humanity could achieve. As night fell, Rylan stepped toward the chamber entrance cautiously. The tunnels were still safe for now, but he knew he couldn't stay hidden forever. The Tyrannan would adapt, hunt again, and the world above waited with peril at every turn. Yet he felt no fear. He had proven, in the smallest and the largest ways, that humans could overcome. That hope was worth more than safety. That courage could carve sanctuary from chaos. The dragon child wriggled, playful now, and the mother nudged him gently. Rylan smiled, brushing soot from his armor. They were more than creatures he protected. They were symbols, witnesses to human will and ingenuity. Protecting them had defined him, strengthened him, and given him a purpose beyond survival. A faint glimmer of light appeared through a crack in the wall. It hinted at open sky, fresh air, and a path that led back to the ruined city. Rylan stood slowly, careful not to disturb the dragons. Each step forward was deliberate, a reminder that courage was not a single act but a constant choice. As he led them toward the light, he reflected on the lessons of the past hours, days, and months. Humans survived because they refused to bow to fear, because they acted when the universe demanded inaction, and because they made moral choices, even when death stalked every corner. This was the spark that distinguished them from the Tyrannan, the spark that could one day reclaim a world lost to war. Emerging into the fissured streets, Rylan scanned the horizon. Smoke still rose, fires burned, and danger lurked. Yet among the ruins, the dragon child flapped its tiny wings experimentally, and the mother stretched, powerful and elegant, beside him. Life persisted and they were proof. Rylan lowered himself to the ground, letting the child climb onto his shoulder. He whispered, "We did this together. And we will keep doing it." The mother dragon's eyes met his and he felt the understanding pass between them: trust, respect, and the bond of survival. For the first time in a long while, Rylan allowed himself a full breath. Humans had survived impossible odds, yes, but they had done more than survive. They had inspired. They had protected. They had demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and morality could light a path even through the darkest ruins. And as the red sky faded slightly toward the distant horizon, Rylan knew that their story was only beginning. Humans, dragons, and all who survived this shattered world would face challenges ahead, but for now victory belonged to those who chose to act when others faltered. The spark of humanity burned brighter than ever, and with it, a fragile hope for the world.